It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, it's time for another episode where we talk about the stable framework. And I thought today I would cover something interesting. This is something that stood out to me that's different from traditional Agile frameworks and a stable framework. And even though these things are present, it doesn't necessarily get identified as part of Agile. So let's talk about it in a stable way. I want to talk to you about the three domains that are contained in stable. The three domains are shared by each role, and they include the future domain, the present domain, and the past domain. We must plan our work ahead of time before we can measure the results of our work. For this reason, in the next few chapters of the book, we discuss the future, present, and past domains in that order. Now, what I can tell you is that each of these domains have specific things about them. And I want to be careful because I don't want to get too waterfall. I don't want to say you have to have everything planned in advance. But let's start with future domain. I think it's going to make sense, and I think you'll get your head around it. The future domain is where information is stored for future use. This includes system configurations, system schedules, a systems backlog. And when I'm talking about a system, that could be systems list, process controls, asset controls, anything that's going to help you with regard to system configuration. So, system configuration represents the institutional knowledge developed and stored for the retention and improvement of the environment. Using a configuration management system, or CMS, systems lists, process controls, and asset controls can be stored and improved over time. So, this is one of those things where we can keep track of the things that are happening and we can make sure that we're improving over time. Another example would be value streams and master services. A master services list is a collection of all the services offered by the environment. It should represent all the value propositions and corresponding supporting services. Think of this as a list of value streams that the system provides. So that could be things like everything from uptime to backups to there's tons of examples here. As part of quality planning, the process owners of each of the services should have an initial consultation with the major customers of each service and draft a specific service level for each service they're responsible for. The service level should be noted in a master services list. After the process owners do this, they need to report their findings to the master chief and demonstrate the appropriate service level expectation has been met and noted in the master services list. There are also pending services. Pending services are services that have not yet been deployed but are presently in development. This list is updated by the master chief from regular meetings with engineering. It's important to keep this list updated so that no last minute surprises impact an operations group. That makes sense. And then, of course, you have retired services and supplier services. This is just a place for you to keep everything together. There are also process controls. The master services list is a list of processes organized by value streams. For each repeatable work process step, a kata, a standard operating procedure, or a kata card template, a process recovery model, and a lessons learned document should be created when needed. And that makes sense. Basically, don't make the same mistakes over and over again, right? With regard to asset controls, you want to make sure you have an asset control section that lists the primary assets required by the process owners to service and function properly. So if you have any kind of system schedules, system backlogs, that's a good place for you to keep that information. Also, if there's any maintenance queues or things like that that you have to keep track of, that's another thing that should be kept, all as part of the future domain. Let's focus briefly on the present domain. Now, the present domain is where the work's getting performed. The team uses a visual workflow tool, typically a Kanban board, to indicate what they're working on and a completion status of that work. So they have a Kanban board with objectives, things to do, things in progress or in process with a WIP limit, and then, of course, a done column. Then they have their kata cards that they can move through to show how things are being completed. Step 1 complete, step 2 complete, etc., to validate that the items that they're working on are being done. And for the team, the present domain indicates the daily Kaizen stand-up, the 5S housekeeping, ad hoc Kaizen teams to stand up for emergency response, process kata and kata cards, training and retraining where needed. For any kind of committees, they have a change control committee and a CAPA, CCAPA committee. And then, of course, the environment has alert systems, production change logs, and a suggestion box for improvement. Each of these things help people as they work through the present domain to achieve the things they need to do from day to day and to make sure they're keeping track of anything that disrupts or anything that causes the system not to flow as planned. And I did mention a CCAPA or Kappa committee. That's the committee that owns the list, the Kappa list. And the committee meeting is attended by a service desk director, development director, master chief. Any relevant team members can participate as needed. This meeting happens daily before a morning stand up or once per cycle, preferably during a cycle review. The purpose of the meeting is to be sure that all parties are aware of the status of any or new outstanding non-conforming issues. So new issues can be brought to the attention of the team by the Master Chief during the daily stand-up. So it just gives you some additional guidance to help you have stability. So that way you can make sure that you have everything in order. Now, I did also mention the 5S housekeeping. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, that's sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And each one of those can be applied just to make sure that, hey, we've got our stuff in order. We have a clean work area, that we have standardized how we're going to do things, and that we're sustaining continual improvement. Okay, let's talk briefly about the pass domain. I realize this is very fast, and we can go into details of these another time. But the pass domain contains historical information regarding the most recent and trending status reports from the environment. Those charts created are used for reporting the posted and posting the performance on a performance console. There are three types of data in the pass domain: master cycle totals, historical logs, and a cumulative system performance chart. This latter chart is the quantitative summary of key performance indicators that can be brought to and discussed at the organization's quarterly business reviews. So there's lots of master cycle tools that are here, including a cumulative systems performance chart, the supplier services SLAM chart, cycle totals, customer satisfaction, customer net promoter score, historical logs that include production change logs, critical decision logs, kata card historical repositories, the cumulative system performance repository, and of course training logs or retraining logs. So that way you have information you can go back to if necessary to figure out what happened or if it ever happened before, and how you can go about making course correction if you need to. One of the key elements of Stable that I really enjoy is that it gives you the power to really get control of your hidden factory. It allows you to figure out how to do things and how to update things and how to correct things, so you don't run into the same problems over and over again that typical teams run into. So I hope with all my heart that you'll take a look at Stable. It's got some really good stuff. And I think that if you do, I can tell you right now, you won't be disappointed. So that's going to do it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation about the domains. And as always, I encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.